Keir Starmer, Labour's absolute shambles of a leader, is you've guessed it, relaunching himself again. He's gone from embracing Blair's legacy to finally admitting those 10 pledges were a sham, and now he wants to paint a picture in primary colours. What the hell does that even mean? Keir Starmer has announced a departure from his 10 pledges, a pledge, lest we forget, being a solemn promise made to us, the Labour membership. This is hardly news to those of us who have been or still are members of the Labour Party. He departed from them on day one. It's just taken him 18 months to admit he never really meant a word he said in order to become elected. His war on the left of his own party just confirmed that. His promise to build on the success of Corbyn's leadership, translated as rip it all up and suspend him from the party for far longer than the rules allow, and suspend any CLPs that dare try show solidarity with him. Any semblance of socialism he appointed to his front bench was ousted on the flimsiest of terms as fast as he could manage, and it's been dictated ever since. He's lost support, lost volunteers, lost members, and is now thrown out even more by proscribing various groups on the left of the party, and as a result is no longer competitive in by-elections, losing one after another, only hanging on to Attlee and Spen as a result of emotional blackmail and a bit of luck in the Green Party stepping aside. Pledge 1 was the easiest to keep as it was on economic justice. Lowest corporation tax on level in Europe and a tax only on profits, as this is. Raising it should have been a no-brainer. He said now is not the time. At the same time, he was campaigning to be Labour leader. He literally broke this pledge before even getting elected. Pledge 2 was social justice. Well, where's the social justice in saying nurses deserve a 2.1% pay rise after the Tories promised 1%, they needed 12%, and they were owed 15%? The Tories went 3%, gazumping Starmer, who's then broken his pledge and his faith with nurses who need a fairer deal and expected Labour to help them get it. Climate change was pledge 3. For heaven's sake, all he had to do was stick with Becky Long-Bailey's excellent Green New Deal and Corbyn's 2030 climate crisis target. Nope, ditched it within months of becoming leader, has offered a limp ambition since. Always an ambition and never actual policy announcements, God forbid. Promote peace and human rights was pledge 4. Just look at his treatment of Labour Party members, his abuse of the Labour Party rule book, which is legally binding, the payoffs to shush up legal cases we had, and you've got an authoritarian who has been far too profligate with party cash. No wonder Labour's worried it can't even cover payroll now. But besides internal abuses, he's been a serial abstainer on the issue of human rights, and he's a former human rights lawyer. From the Overseas Operations Bill to the Spy Cops Bill, he whipped his MPs to abstain, and he was going to do the same on the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill until the events of Clapham Common happened, forcing him to grudgingly oppose. Pathetic. Pledge 5 was common ownership. He ripped that up when he rode back on the prospect of nationalising BT, saying Labour under him is pro-business. In other words, he's a red Tory. Defend migrant rights was pledge number 6. When we have a sociopathic migrant hater in Priti Patel, it should be easy to just frankly oppose anything that comes out of her mouth. Starmer has failed to ever do so, not even once, so he hasn't kept this pledge. Pledge 7 was strengthen workers' rights and trade unions. What a sick joke this one is. When Becky Long-Bailey sided with the teaching unions over concerns regarding COVID in schools, she got the sack. Allegedly, it was because she called Maxine Peake a diamond, but we all know the truth. Useless Kate Green replaced her, and Starmer just went, schools must open, no ifs, no buts, no equivocation. He backed Unite over fire and rehire on Twitter, then panicked over it and deleted it, and now he's using fire and rehire tactics to sack 90 Labour Party staff, all whilst recruiting more on temporary part-time contracts, causing the trade unions to now consider industrial action against Starmer and Labour. He broke this in the most egregious possible way. Pledge 8, radical devolution of power, wealth and opportunity. Well, that was torn up when he defended Boris Johnson in his trip to Scotland during the pandemic to promote the union, and has been utterly silent on Tory cronies ending up in the House of Lords. So much for equal opportunity. The gravy train rumbles on under Team Key. Pledge 9 was promotion of equality, but then he called Black Lives Matter a moment and has expelled members, most notably Jeremy Corbyn and most recently Ken Loach, over factually questioning the prevalence of anti-Semitism, or standing in solidarity with suspended members. Plus, he's still burying the Forde report, which, lest we forget, is a report into internal racism in the party. And BAME members in particular are furious this has still not been released. And pledge number 10, to provide effective opposition to the Tories. Well, there's so many to choose from, isn't there? But I'll never forget the people on Gogglebox saying, if him saying, I agree with the Tories were a drinking game, you'd be pissed. So let's bury this notion that he might scrap his 10 pledges. He's already broken every single one, some several times over, and they are no longer worth the paper they were printed on. Now, on top of his agile ceremonies and his multidisciplinary collaborations in iteration, he's talking about painting in primary colours. What the hell does this man say? What are these words? Why are they in the order they're in? Because it doesn't make sense. He's a brill-creamed advert for suited and booted nothingness, and he's insisting on talking in such a meaningless fashion. His speech is now a direct reflection of his persona. It's like he's from an alien planet. There's no sense in anything he's saying. Painting in primary colours, what are you, 3? Well, you've torn up any semblance of socialism so you can forget ever using red. You stand for a metric ton of sod all, so Liberal Democrat yellow might suit, but with all your constant agreement with the government, your tenure as leader is most definitely blue. Some might argue that mixing them might make green, but we've already exploded pledge number 3, so let's not go there. The top priority is a Labour government, he says. Great, tell us something we don't know. How are you going to achieve that when you lie, break your promises, and have no policy? Are you going to announce some? No, you're apparently going to paint. You've asked, what is the one thing that connects Attlee, Wilson and Blair? Well, I would say to you, they all had vision, they all had policies, and they all increased Labour's seat count, but you missed out Jeremy Corbyn in 2017, who did the same thing, though. But that little nugget doesn't suit you, does it? By officially announcing the 10 pledges might be on the way out, broken as they are anyway, it merely confirms you lied to get elected and have never actually stood for a damn thing, not even them. You lied to members who might have supported you on that, and that makes you fundamentally untrustworthy. You're dishonest, Keir. You have no policy still to this day for anyone to base an opinion on your ability to lead, and the longer that goes on for, the worse people's opinions of you are going to be. But we will judge you on the way you behave towards Labour members. Now, a recent YouGov poll of people's attitudes towards you was excoriating. Of 12,000 respondents, huge by YouGov's measure, 76% think you're incompetent, 80% don't like you, 80% don't believe you'll ever be Prime Minister. And as for people voting who they thought did a better job of leading the Labour Party, you scored 35% compared to Jeremy Corbyn leading with 44%. Win the future is the new strapline that you've come up with and you're sticking to. How handy for a guy with no policies and no direction that the future isn't written yet. But it won't be primary colours with you still leading. You walking absence. It'll be beige, beige, beige. The fact this abbreviates to WTF and what that usually stands for hilariously sums up how the majority of not just members, but voters feel about you and what passes for your leadership. But how cringingly awful you are at promoting yourself at the party that you never saw that. Nobody trusts you after you broke all your promises. Nobody knows what you stand for when you relaunch yourself more often than you change your underwear. And so I'm afraid I have to break it to you, Keir Starmer, that you will never lead the country. You will never win, because unlike the Tories, we won't support somebody with so little substance and nor back a liar. Next month at Labour conference, I really hope some home truths are going to hit you hard, you useless little man.